Hi, my name is Dick Cully and welcome to more Secrets of the World's Greatest Drummer. This is a continuation of the first videotape that many of you out there have purchased. A Legend Continues, The Secrets of the World's Greatest Drummer, which is an in-depth analysis of the late great Mr. Buddy Rich, who we all know was absolutely the greatest drummer in the world. Many of you have sent me letters, videotapes, audio tapes, and I really appreciate all of the kind comments that you've made about my playing and the technique, and that you were able to grasp a lot and take a lot out of the first video, and I really appreciate that. This video is More Secrets is going to carry on where we kind of left off with this. And we're going to try to answer the specific questions that many of you have written to me about. We're going to get more into talking about technique and things that I practiced. And we'll also share some observations at the drums, some new patterns, some new little licks, and hopefully you'll learn just as much from this video as the first one. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of things to cover. So let's get to it. Let's go to the drums. Well, the first thing that I guess I need to mention is the instrument that I'm going to be playing on today. These are Stingray drums. They're a fiberglass shell drum, and they're manufactured here in Florida, in West Palm Beach, Florida. Dick Vilkins happened to make this set for me, and they're a great drum, and I enjoy playing on them. You'll hear them, and you have been hearing them. Fiberglass shells, I especially like the snare drum. It has a great sound, and they all have a great kick to them. So as we get on, you'll hear them. But first thing we're going to talk about is the elements of holding the drumsticks. Okay, obviously we can't play the drums unless we know how to hold the drumstick. So some of this information we spoke about on the first video, but we'll refresh it and we'll try to go in a little bit further. All right, this is a drumstick, and the drumstick is tapered on one end. All right, so obviously the balance point is not in the center of the drumstick. It's back. All right, and that is where we hold the drumstick. This is where we control the drumstick. Now, in the left hand, it's held in the fulcrum, which is considered this portion of the hand between the thumb and the first finger. The fingers are wrapped around the drumstick, and in playing there is some finger technique that is used. There is some bounce that is used, but basically the stick is really controlled from this point, and I need to emphasize that this is where you control the drumstick from, not anywhere else, not using your fingers, because this is the place where you touch the drumstick. Now in the right hand, the drumstick is held between the first finger and the thumb as such. This is really where this drumstick is controlled. And once again, if I line up both drumsticks, you're going to see that they're controlled pretty much by the same identical spot on this hand and on this hand. Now in the right hand, the third and the fourth fingers are held on the drumstick. The pinky is just kind of tucked up underneath and doesn't touch the drumstick, but it does come into play. Now the stick has freedom. It's not a tight, grasping choke hold on the stick. It has freedom. Same thing with the left hand. These fingers right now, because I'm holding the stick stationary, are touching it. But when I'm playing, they really don't touch the drumstick. They kind of just play off of it. All right. Now, the motions, we'll discuss motions. Guys want to know, well, are you playing with fingers? Are you playing with your wrists? Just how are you playing? And it's a combination of things. The motion for the left hand is like turning a doorknob. All right, it's spinning, and it's an extension of my entire forearm to the elbow. That is the motion. It's not just the wrist, and it's not using fingers. It's playing with the entire forearm. And this is the motion that is made, like such. With the right hand, it's not really the forearm at all. It is basically a wrist motion, up and down, as such. Now, when do I play with just wrists? When do I play with fingers? When do I play with a bounce? It all depends upon the length of the stroke that I'm making, the volume of the stroke, and the speed of the stroke. When I'm making a slow stroke as such, when you're referring to a single stroke roll, for an example, and I bring it from very slow, well, obviously, it's more wrists. It's a wrist motion. Give an example. Okay, that would be a wrist motion. And because of the height, if I was playing it faster, but softer, all right, that's wrist, but there's a little bit of bounce and a little bit of finger in it as well. If I was to play it faster than that, then obviously it would be finger and using the rebound. But it's a combination. It's wrist, it's fingers. It all depends upon the type of stroke that you're making. And those are basically the elements of a single stroke roll. A great exercise to play in developing your hands, and we're going to talk about exercises. We're going to go to the drum pad, and I'm going to work through exercises with you. But one of the things that I had mentioned in the first tape was just a closed roll or a buzz roll, which is in the old school referred to as a whipped cream roll, the way Buddy played a roll. Well, you all know how to play a roll, all right, say like a buzz roll or a closed roll. It's done by pushing or pressing the stick into the drum head. Now, obviously, that's the most elementary way. A lot of drummers, when they play a roll, a lot of classical drummers will pick a specific point on the drum, usually on the outside, and that's the way they'll try to play their roll. Now, Buddy never played his roll that way. He always played with his sticks on the outside of the snare drum. And we refer to the whipped cream roll. The whipped cream roll is making a drag, but making a motion, a dragging motion, like a sideway motion. All right? A lot of you had asked about that in the first one. It's a motion as such. Going in, out, coming in. Going out, coming in, out, in, out. That's the kind of motion that you want to try to achieve. This is an exaggeration of the motion, but this is the motion that you want to try to achieve. Out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. And we're going to attempt to play a closed roll using this whipped cream motion. And the purpose of it is, rather than having a direct hit, a vertical direct hit down, it makes the roll sound cleaner or smoother. And to perfect a closed roll, Buddy was a master at a closed roll, but you have to be able to play it softly, pianissimo, or triple forte, and we're going to try to do that. So anyway, in playing a closed roll or buzz roll, let's just work on that, all right? Now, Ray is my cameraman, and we're going to, I want him to kind of watch both of my hands, and then we're going to talk about the right hand, and Ray will zoom in on the right hand so that you can get a tight look and you can see the motion, and same thing with the left hand. All right, so we'll play a roll again. Now, if you'll notice, I am dragging. See the way the stick is moving from side to side? And on the right hand, notice the grip that I'm using. Basically, like such. On the left hand, you'll notice that there's a lot of freedom between the fingers to allow the stick to move. Playing a closed roll, I feel, after a while, I will feel some tension or pressure here in the fulcrums. But that's really where you develop strength from. And that's one of the reasons why Buddy used to practice it, Louis practiced it, just playing a roll. It's the greatest exercise in the world. So that's the way Buddy used to play a roll, and it strengthens the hands. It's a workout. You're going to feel it in both of your the fulcrum areas of your hands. But it's great. It's a great way to condition and strengthen. In playing fast, you have to play relaxed, but it's conditioning, and that is really where you're building strength into your hands. So just playing a closed roll like that is a great exercise, and I try to use that as a warm-up, just playing a closed roll. But grip is very important, all right? So hopefully Ray got some good shots of the way that the hands move, and you can see exactly how the fingers and the muscles come into play. And here we are at the practice pad. And yes, believe it or not, I still own a practice pad. And you may laugh at this one, because this one is pretty old, but this is actually my first practice pad. This was handmade by yours truly. Has a gum rubber pad on it that was glued to a piece of wood. And this is an old Slingerland snare drum stand that it was attached to. And I can't even begin to imagine the number of times that this pad has been struck, but this is my practice pad. Uh, some of the exercises that I specifically worked on came out of the stick control book. And I pretty much recommend that everybody go through the stick control book. The first page, you can play a lifetime. It will take a lifetime to go through that. But anyway, I'm going to play some of the exercises that I did, and you can find them out of the stick control book. And the reason why I'm going to play them is so that you can see me play them, and you can watch my hands, the way they move, and hopefully that will affect or help the way you play. First exercise in the stick control book was 4 rights and 4 lefts. So we're going to play 4 rights and 4 lefts. And if I was to go back to my elementary days, this is the way I would start out. And we're just going to run through some exercises, okay? So 4 rights. Also, I would suggest that you practice with a mirror. I always practiced with a mirror in front of me so that I could be aware of the stick height. A lot of guys, when they play, because they're right-handed, obviously that's going to be the stronger. And if your left hand is the weaker hand, your height isn't going to be the same. But when you have a mirror in front of you practicing, you can watch the height and make sure that the height is level. So anyway, 4 rights, 4 lefts. This is the way I would practice. And such, okay? I would start with an exercise slow, gradually try to increase the speed, play it as fast as I could play it, pushing, but never straining, okay? Never strain when you're trying to press yourself to play faster. Conditioning, you got to push yourself to an extreme, but never to the point of tension. It's a very relaxed motion. And then bring the speed back down. Now you can do that by playing at the various volume levels as well, by playing softly or loud. But basically that was the type of strokes that I did. So 4s, 3s, okay? The same thing with playing 3. Now this is a wrist motion. My wrist making the downward and the upward stroke. Still wrist. Still wrist. Playing with somewhat of a bounce at about that speed. Now, although I'm playing with a bounce, my wrist is initiating the rebound. So those are threes, okay? Now, with you being a right-handed individual, obviously your left hand is the weaker hand. And when I studied with Ed Shaughnessy in Manhattan, and for those of you who don't remember who Ed Shaughnessy is, he was the Tonight Show drummer with Johnny Carson for many years. We had discussed in equaling the hands, and he was a firm believer that since your left hand is the weaker of the two, that you need to develop or work on that hand at a greater ratio than you would your right hand. And his belief was 3 to 1. And I used to play like sometimes 4 to 1, 5 to 1. And what I mean for that is for every exercise or stroke that you make with your right hand, you need to make 3 or 4 with your left hand to make your hands equal. And I used to play several exercises that were in the stick control book that did that 3 to 1 ratio. The most famous of them is 1 right and 3 lefts. This is also a pattern that Buddy used around the drums. And when we go back to the drum set, we'll give you an example of that. And I try not to exaggerate the right hand like that, although it could be if I wanted to. All right, or in beginning with 3, it's the same pattern, just reversed. All right, playing 6s. Or 8s. But I always used to practice in this method. I would start out slowly, build up my speed to as fast as I could, and then bring it back down again. All right, and that's the way that you should practice. Okay, Also, it's important to remember, and I had spoken this in the first video, the angle, all right? When you sit down behind a table or a desk or a chair, the height, the level of the table is usually around elbow level, and it's just practicality. That's the most convenient, efficient level for your hands to work. And that's the same height that your snare drum should be. It should be at a comfortable elbow level, all right? Also, it should be tilted away from you. You want it to be an extension. When I have a drumstick in my hand, it falls down, all right? A motion should really be a downward motion. When you're playing in an area like such, if you have the snare drum facing forward or towards you, okay, your hands naturally want to be bent. Your wrists want to be bent. And it's always easier to play down than it is to play up. So if my hands are up in a normal stroke, when I hit, the wrist is level. And then I have to make an upward motion again. Well, it just makes more sense, and it's more comfortable for you to make a downward motion. The stick should be an extension of your forearm, so you shouldn't have to be holding your hands up. I'm talking about in playing faster. Okay, obviously when you're first learning to play the drums, you're making these exaggerated motions of how to play. But in reality, when you're playing on a snare drum or you're playing on a drum set, that really doesn't hold truth anymore. So what you really want to do is to play down. You don't want to have to play up. You play down. It's easier to play down. So it's an extension. And it's very important that you remember to keep the snare drum at a comfortable height away from you, and that the sticks are an extension of your forearms. So those are just some of the exercises that I used to practice on. And I definitely, if you don't have the stick control book, if you've never worked out of the stick control book, I would suggest that you go out